Hello everyone. Today we will be practicing Parajumble questions. If you remember the learning tutorials, in Parajumble we have a number of sentences which are to be arranged in a manner to make a meaningful passage considering a proper connectivity between the sentences of information. So here we have 5 sentences and 5 questions. Each question asks for the position of a particular sentence as given in the question. So let's begin. The very first step that we must follow is finding out the first sentence, as most of the sentences apart from the first sentence contain certain phrases which do not allow them to be the first sentence. So let's analyze all the sentences one by one. Read the first sentence. The policy makers in most of the developing economies recognize this importance. Now, in this sentence, the phrase this importance relates to some importance which should have been mentioned before this sentence. So, this cannot be the first sentence. The second sentence is while some of these countries. Now, we also don't know which are these countries talked about in this sentence. So, we cannot make this as the first sentence. The socio-economic disparities between rural and urban areas are widening and creating tremendous pressure on the social and economic fabric of many such developing economies. Such developing economies. Which developing economies? We don't know if we make this as the first sentence. The fourth sentence is these factors among many others. In the very first phrase of the sentence, these factors must relate to some factors which should be present before this sentence. Again, the sentence 4 cannot be the first sentence. We are only left with choice number 5, that is E. Although millions of rural people have escaped poverty as a result of rural development in many Asian countries, a large majority of rural people continue to suffer from persistent poverty. This is a sentence which can absolutely be made as the first sentence because it can be used as the information base for further sentences. So, option E is the first sentence and should be marked in question number 169, which is the fifth option, E. Now we will find out the second sentence. Up till now we have established that millions of rural people have escaped poverty. That is, rural people escaping poverty as a result of rural development in many Asian countries. But a lot of rural people still suffer from persistent poverty. This is a difference or disparity between the people of the rural areas and those people who have developed and moved into urban situations. If you notice sentence C, which says the socio-economic disparities between rural and urban areas are widening and creating tremendous pressure on the social and economic fabric of many such developing economies. Now, in sentence C, the author has talked about the socio-economic disparities between rural and urban areas, and also he mentions such developing economies. In sentence 1, we have many Asian countries which are mostly developing economies, having rural areas which are under development. So, sentence C can be taken as the second sentence with a proper connectivity between the sentence E and sentence C. Thus, on the social and economic fabric of many such developing economies is the second sentence. We should mark question 170 with option C or 3 as the correct choice. Now the third sentence. We have established that Millions of rural people have escaped poverty, but still a large majority of rural people continue to suffer from persistent poverty. This is a disparity between rural and urban areas, and this is widening and creating tremendous pressure on the social and economic fabric of developing economies. Now, the disparity between rural and urban areas, which is widening and creating tremendous pressure, is a factor which is prevalent in developing economies. If you notice option D, these factors, among many others, tend to highlight the importance of rural development directly relates to sentence C, because we have established in sentence E also, which is the first sentence, that rural development is important and needed, and because there is disparity between rural and urban areas in the developing economies, the importance of rural development is established. So, sentence D should be the third sentence of the passage, and we can mark question 166 with option 4 or D as the correct choice. Now, we will find out the fourth sentence. We have established that the development of rural areas is very important, and the factors disparities between rural and urban areas, which is widening and creating tremendous pressure on social and economic fabric, highlights the importance of rural development. If you notice sentence A, which reads, the policymakers in most of the developing economies recognize this importance. Now, this importance and importance of rural development is a direct connection, and it is clear that sentence A should come after sentence D. We can mark sentence A to be the fourth sentence, and question number 168 will have the correct choice as option 3 or A. We are left with one sentence and one question. The sentence B. While some of these countries have achieved impressive results from those programs and measures, others have failed to make a significant dent in the problem of persistent rural underdevelopment. We have the phrase those programs in the sentence B, and in the sentence just before that we have the phrase a host of programs. You can clearly see that this is a direct connection, and we can mark question number 167 with sentence B or option 2 as the correct choice without doubt. We have successfully solved this parajumble, and now we can move on to the next one. In this parajumble we have 6 sentences and 5 questions. In the same manner as the last parajumble, we have to create a meaningful paragraph. The sentences must have proper forward and backward connectivity. So, just like in the first parajumble, we have to first find out which sentence can be the first sentence through the process of elimination. Let's begin from the first sentence. The first sentence reads, development of drought resistance could benefit large number of farmers. Technically, this sentence can be the first sentence as it does not contain any phrase which prohibits it from becoming the first sentence. But this is a lot of information in one sentence without any base if it is made the first sentence. So we cannot take this as the first sentence. The second sentence reads, hence the human race has no choice. The phrase hence the human race does not allow sentence B to be the first sentence, as the word hence establishes that there must be another sentence before this sentence which forms the base whose result is given in sentence B. So we can also not take B as the first sentence. The third sentence is, India has to be concerned about climatic changes. This sentence can be the first sentence, and also this can be taken as the basis to establish further information and facts of the other sentences. We can take this as the first sentence, but let's analyze other options also. Sentence D reads, this impact can run into decades and centuries. We don't know which is this impact which is being talked about if we take this as the first sentence. So we cannot take sentence D as the first sentence. Sentence E reads, Environment Day is thus an important occasion to assess the past and our future. The phrase, thus an important occasion, does not allow this sentence to be the first sentence, as the word thus directly establishes that there must be another sentence before this sentence for establishing the information given in sentence E. So we cannot take this as the first sentence. Sentence F reads, there is a possibility of adverse impact on agriculture which could deter growth. This sentence again technically can be the first sentence, but it also has a lot of information without any information base. So this cannot be the first sentence. We are only left with sentence C, which will be taken as the first sentence, and we can mark question number 215 with the third choice C. Now let's look at other sentences. We have established that we are talking about India and that India should be concerned about climatic changes. Now, climatic changes should have bad results. So, in the further sentences, bad results or impacts should be talked about. If you notice sentence F, it reads, there is a possibility of adverse impact on agriculture which could deter growth. Climatic changes would of course have adverse impact on agriculture. So we can take sentence F as the next sentence or second sentence. Mark question number 213 with option 3 F. Now we have established that India should be concerned about climatic changes, and climatic changes will have adverse impact on agriculture. There are two other sentences which talk about these impacts, sentence B and sentence D. One of these sentences will follow sentence E. Let's read sentence B first. Hence, the human race has no choice but to adapt to these impacts. Now, this sentence, if it comes after sentence F, would mean that adverse impact on agriculture should be adapted by the human race. Now, analyze sentence D. This impact can run into decades and centuries. This is further information about the adverse impacts being talked about in sentence F. Now, compare. Sentence B talks about a certain result, while certain E talks about further information about the factor adverse impact given in sentence F. Clearly, we should first establish all the information and then move on to results. Thus, sentence D will be the next sentence or sentence third. Mark question 212 with option D or option 2. Clearly, sentence B will then be the fourth sentence, but we do not have to mark it anywhere, so let's move on to the fifth sentence. Up till now, we have established that India should be concerned about climatic changes which will result in adverse impact on agriculture, which will run into decades and centuries, and human race will have no choice but to adapt to these impacts. Sentence 4, which is talking about in what manners these impacts can be countered. So, the next sentence that follows must also somehow relate to countermeasures for these impacts. If you notice sentence A, it also gives such a measure which can be used to counter adverse impacts of climatic changes. These measures are development of drought resistance, which will benefit large number of farmers. Clearly, sentence A can be the fifth sentence of the paragraph. Mark question number 211 with sentence A or fourth option. we are only left with one sentence and one question. Question 214 and sentence E or option 5. Check. The sentence reads, Environment Day is thus an important occasion to assess the past and our future. This sentence sums up the entire paragraph, saying that on Environment Day, we should assess the past and our future in terms of climatic changes and its adverse impacts on the Indian farmers. Thus, we have the sequence as C, F, D, B, A, E. And we have successfully solved our Parajumble question.